Okay, so have you ever been stuck in one of those meetings
Uh-huh.
where it feels like all everyone wants to do is point fingers?
Oh, yeah.
It's like all this energy just goes into like figuring out who messed up
Right.
instead of, like how to actually like fix the problem and
Yeah.
move on. And it just feels so unproductive.
Totally agree.
And in this deep dive, what we're going to do is we're going to look at a leadership approach
Okay.
that really like tackles this head on. The idea is to kind of ditch
Yeah.
those blame-focused discussions that just go nowhere
Right.
and actually try to build a culture where the priority is on solving problems.
I love that.
And I think you'll see as we go through this, especially, with AI becoming more and more a part of everything we do,
Yeah, absolutely.
this kind of leadership, it's not just like a nice to have anymore.
Uh-huh.
It's really becoming essential.
It's becoming mission critical, I think,
Yeah.
for leaders and really for all of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just to start thinking in this way. So yeah, a lot of people I think have experienced this firsthand.
Yeah.
This dynamic, where,
Yeah.
where people are quick to point fingers and blame each other.
Right.
And what we want to talk about is, how a leader can actually step in and change that pattern.
Yeah.
And our goal today is to kind of understand like how this shift in leadership, how taking accountability
Yeah.
can actually transform your work environment.
Yeah.
Not just to be more productive, which is
Yeah.
important, but also to become way more innovative.
Yes.
And that's especially important as we start to see AI becoming more integrated into how we work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
So let's jump right into it. What's the real cost of having a blame culture in the workplace?
yeah, that's the big question, right?
Yeah.
Because we all feel it, but like what's actually happening?
Yes.
So think about like those meetings you've been in after something goes wrong.
Oh, yeah. What does that look like? I think a lot of times what you see,
Mm-hmm.
and you've probably done this yourself, is people are very careful.
Right.
They're kind of like tiptoeing around trying to make sure that
Yeah.
nobody thinks they're the one who messed up.
Like a hot potato.
It really is. It's like,
Nobody wants to hold it.
yeah, you don't want to be the last one holding the potato when the music stops.
Right.
But here's the thing. It's not always because people are like intentionally trying to be dishonest or
Yeah.
like throw someone under the bus.
Right.
When you have an environment where people are afraid of getting punished for making a mistake,
Yeah.
it's almost like a natural human instinct
Yeah.
to try to protect themselves.
It's self-preservation.
It really is. It's like a basic survival mechanism.
Yeah. And so instead of focusing on like, okay, what actually went wrong
Right.
and how did we end up here?
Yeah, how did we get here?
It becomes this very personal thing about who is going to take the fall for this.
It becomes about blame and punishment instead of about learning.
Exactly. And I think that has a huge impact
absolutely.
on how people think and act
Right.
in that environment.
Yeah.
Because if there's that constant fear,
If you're walking on eggshells all the time.
yes,
Yeah.
people are going to be afraid to take risks.
Right. And so you end up with people not wanting to try new things,
Yeah.
not wanting to suggest new ideas,
Not wanting to experiment.
not experimenting because the potential downside
Right.
is, getting blamed
Yes.
if it doesn't work out perfectly.
It's so true.
And then you start to hear those classic phrases like,
Oh, yeah.
well, this is how we've always done it.
Yes. We've always done it this way.
Why change it? Or even that real innovation killer,
Oh, tell me about it.
not invented here.
Mhm.
Which often that's just a way of saying I'm too scared to try something new.
Yeah. It's just hiding that fear.
It is. It's masking that fear.
And it just, you were saying earlier, like learning
Yes.
is so important.
It's essential.
And this just stops learning dead in its tracks.
It really does. And especially now, things are changing so quickly
Yeah.
with technology, with AI.
AI especially, yeah.
If you don't have a strong learning culture,
Right.
you're already behind.
Yeah, you can't keep up.
We can't keep up.
And I think this is something that a lot of people don't realize is
Yeah.
just how interconnected all of this is.
Yeah.
It's not just about
It's not just one thing.
like shutting down new ideas,
Right.
but it's also that fear of blame
Right.
actually prevents people from learning from the mistakes that were made.
Yes. From being open to new ways of working.
Or even just like being open to trying
Yeah,
to
yeah.
do things in a new way.
Totally.
Yeah.
And including integrating AI effectively.
Yes.
And it's expensive too.
Oh, yeah.
Like not just in terms of wasted time in meetings, which
Oh.
is a big one,
Oh, yeah.
but you also have delays in getting things fixed.
Yeah.
Because people are afraid to speak up.
Yeah.
You have people who are just not engaged. Right.
They're checked out.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you risk losing really good people
Yes.
who are looking for a place where they can grow,
Yeah, where they feel safe
where they feel safe
to contribute.
to contribute,
Yeah.
where they're not constantly looking over their shoulder.
Yeah, and it can even get to a point where,
This is scary.
yeah, where people are actively hiding problems.
Yes.
Like they're so afraid to be blamed
Right.
that they'll just sweep things under the rug.
And we all know what that leads to.
Yeah, it's like those watermelon reports. You know?
Yeah, the classic watermelon.
Everything looks green on the outside,
Green on the outside,
but underneath it's all red.
red on the inside.
Yeah.
Lots of problems hiding.
Yeah, and when you think about how this plays out with AI.
Ooh, yeah. This is where it gets really interesting
Yeah.
and a little bit scary, because if people are afraid
Right.
to admit that they're having trouble with AI or that they made a mistake in how they used it.
Because they're worried about getting blamed,
Right.
then you're going to miss things.
Yes.
And those things can turn into much bigger problems down the line.
Especially with AI, because AI can
amplify everything.
can make things happen so much faster.
Yeah.
So if there's a problem,
At AI speed,
yeah, that problem's going to spread
it's going to scale up really fast.
really fast.
So the stakes are higher.
So we've talked about how bad a blame culture can be.
It can be toxic.
But the good news is
There's hope.
that leaders can actually change this.
They have the power
Yes.
to shift the whole dynamic.
So let's talk about how leaders can move away from this
Yes.
controlling approach
Right.
and towards one that's based on accountability.
Yeah. I love this topic. So imagine you're in a situation
Yeah.
where something has gone wrong
Uh-huh.
and people are starting to point fingers.
Right.
And the leader steps in and says something like, you know what?
Yeah.
This is my fault. I need your help, everyone's help, to figure out how to solve this.
That's powerful.
I messed up. I apologize. Let's work on this together.
I mean, just saying those words,
Just saying those words.
like what happens in that moment?
the whole energy changes.
Yes.
Because who's going to keep blaming other people
Right.
when the leader's already taken responsibility?
Exactly.
It just stops the blame cycle right there.
Yeah.
And suddenly everyone can relax a little bit.
Yes.
They don't have to be so defensive.
Right.
And now the energy can go towards
Yeah.
actually understanding the problem
Right. And fixing it.
and finding solutions together.
And it almost seems counterintuitive.
Right, it does. It feels a little backwards.
Like the leader is taking the blame,
Yeah.
even if they weren't directly involved,
That's a strategy.
as a way to actually get to the bottom of things.
It's a brilliant strategy because it's not always about who's actually to blame.
Right.
Sometimes it's nobody's fault. It's about changing the conversation.
Yes.
It's about creating a space,
Right. A safe space.
a safe space where people feel like they can contribute ideas without being afraid.
Yeah. And I think it's important to distinguish here
Yes, this is key.
between accountability
Yes.
and blame.
Yes. Accountability is about owning the problem
Yeah.
and taking responsibility for finding a solution.
Yes.
Blame is about finding someone to punish.
Exactly. And I can see how that would create that psychological safety
It does. It shifts the whole mindset.
that we keep talking about.
Yeah.
But for some leaders, who are used to that,
I can see that.
more traditional
Yeah.
command and control
Yeah. Top down.
style of leadership,
Right.
taking ownership like that might feel,
It feels uncomfortable.
risky,
It does.
Yeah.
It feels like you're showing weakness.
like you're giving up your power.
Right. Like you're not in control.
Yeah.
And in that kind of traditional hierarchy,
Right.
there's this idea that the leader needs to have all the answers.
Right. To always be.
To be
Stuck.
perfect. To never make a mistake
And so admitting fault,
can feel very dangerous.
even if it's strategic,
Right.
could be seen as a sign of weakness.
Absolutely. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
When a leader is willing to be vulnerable
Yeah.
and take ownership,
Uh-huh.
it actually builds more trust with the team.
That's interesting.
It is. It's counterintuitive,
Yeah.
but it's true.
They-
People see that and they think, wow,
Yeah.
this person is being honest. They're being real.
They're human.
I can trust them.
Yeah. And people are more likely to respect and follow
Absolutely.
a leader who shows that kind of integrity.
Integrity and courage.
Yeah.
Because it takes courage to do that.
So the blame game stops.
Right.
There's a safer environment.
More trust.
What's the next step in actually getting to the root of the problem
Yeah. How do we actually fix the underlying issues?
and fixing those issues?
Right.
Yeah.
So the goal is to move towards what's called root cause analysis.
Okay.
We need to understand what happened, not just the symptoms.
Right.
It's like that analogy of the broken glass.
Oh, yeah.
If you keep replacing the glass,
Right.
but you don't figure out why it keeps breaking,
Yeah. You're not solving the problem.
you're just treating the symptom.
You're going to keep replacing glass
ever.
Exactly. You'll be busy replacing glass, but you'll never actually
Right.
fix the problem.
And to do that, to really get to the root cause,
Right.
you need to have that psychological safety.
You need people to feel comfortable
Yeah.
speaking up,
Yeah.
sharing their perspective,
Being honest.
being honest.
Yeah.
And that's where the leader setting the tone
Yeah.
is so important.
So how do we encourage those blameless conversations?
Yeah. Are there like practical tips?
Like, how do we actually do this?
One thing that's really powerful is to just change the language.
Okay.
Instead of asking who made the mistake,
Right.
ask what happened in this situation.
Interesting.
It's a subtle shift,
Yeah.
but it makes a big difference.
Because it's not about the person.
It takes the focus off the individual and
Yeah.
puts it on the situation,
The events.
the event.
Yeah.
And that makes people feel safer to participate.
Especially in a public setting.
Oh, yeah, like in a meeting,
It's really important to keep the conversation focused on the process
on the system,
or the system. Yeah.
not on blaming individual.
Not on individuals.
And there's this tool
Okay.
called the 5 Whys,
5 whys.
which sounds really basic,
Okay.
but it's incredibly effective.
And how does that work?
So you just keep asking why.
Okay.
Like a curious 5-year-old.
Right.
Why did this happen? Okay, why did that happen? And why
Uh-huh.
did that happen?
So you keep digging deeper.
You keep digging, and usually around the 5th why,
Yeah.
you start to get to the root cause.
Okay. So the leader takes ownership,
Sets the tone,
and then we create this environment,
a safe space.
a safe space
Mm.
where we can actually talk about the problem
And learn.
and learn from it. But what about those leaders
Yeah, this is a real thing.
who just they really struggle
Yeah.
to admit when they're wrong?
They hate to be wrong.
They hate to be wrong.
And I get it.
Yeah.
It's hard to admit you made a mistake.
It can feel like you're losing face.
It can feel like you're not a good leader.
Right.
But the truth is,
yeah,
leaders are human.
they are human.
We all make mistakes.
Yes.
And admitting that you don't have all the answers
That-
is actually a sign of strength, not weakness.
It's counterintuitive, but it's true.
It is.
Yeah.
It shows that you're self-aware,
Yes.
that you're confident enough to be vulnerable.
And people respond to that.
They do. They connect with leaders
Yeah.
who are real, who are approachable.
And it's so important for leaders to model that behavior.
Oh, absolutely.
Because if the leader isn't willing to own up to their mistakes,
All right.
why would anyone else on the team feel safe doing that?
Exactly. It sets a double standard. But when the leader says, okay, we messed up.
Right.
I take responsibility for my part in this. Let's figure out how to do better.
Yeah.
It shows everyone that it's okay to make mistakes.
It's a learning opportunity.
It's a learning opportunity,
Yeah.
and that's how we grow.
And it creates that culture
It does.
where it's more important to find solutions
Solutions, not excuses.
than to place blame.
Yes.
And especially with AI evolving so rapidly,
It's so key with AI.
it's more important than ever
Yeah.
to have that kind of learning-oriented culture.
Absolutely. Because AI is going to keep changing.
Yeah.
We need to be able to adapt and learn quickly.
Yeah. So let's talk about how to actually put this into practice.
Yeah, rubber meets the road.
Like, how do leaders start making this shift?
Yeah, it can feel daunting.
Yeah, because you can't just like flip a switch overnight,
No, it's a process.
especially if you're in the middle of a crisis.
Right in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
So the best way to start is to practice in low-stakes situations. Like maybe a small project that didn't go quite as planned.
Right.
And the leader can just say, hey, you know what?
This is on me.
I could have done this better. Let's talk about how we can improve.
And start small.
Start small.
Yeah.
And then gradually build up to bigger challenges.
And as a leader, you can also set some ground rules
Yeah. Team norms.
for the team
Right.
to discourage blame language.
Like no finger pointing,
Yeah.
no name calling.
Right.
Focus on the problem.
And there's some tools that can help with this too.
Like the mood elevator.
The mood elevator.
Yeah, it helps teams become more aware
Uh-huh.
of how they're feeling during a discussion,
Right.
and it can prevent them from getting sucked into that negative blame cycle.
And even just little things.
Little things matter.
Like starting meetings with check-ins
Yeah,
and just reminding people
yeah,
to use language that focuses on solutions,
yes.
not accusations.
That can make a big difference over time.
And of course,
The most important thing.
leading by example.
Absolutely. Actions speak louder than words.
If you want your team to take ownership,
Right.
you have to be willing to do it yourself.
Model the behavior and be consistent.
And it's also important to mentor your team
Yes.
to help them respond productively
When the blame game starts.
when the blame game starts.
Yeah. Coach them on how to redirect the conversation
Right.
to focus on solutions.
And help them to reframe mistakes
Yes.
as learning opportunities.
Yeah, turn those mistakes into gold.
Instead of whose fault is this,
Right.
it's what can we learn from this?
Exactly.
How can we prevent this from happening again?
Yeah, that's the growth mindset.
And let's bring it back to AI.
Yeah.
Because you were talking earlier about how important this shift in leadership
Oh, it's cool.
is as AI becomes more integrated into our work.
So AI is like a giant amplifier
Yeah.
for everything we do.
It speeds everything up.
It makes things happen faster and bigger.
Yeah.
And so if you have a blame culture,
Right.
Where people are afraid to speak up or to admit mistakes,
yeah,
the potential for things to go really wrong
it's so much higher.
is much higher.
Yeah.
Because those mistakes can get amplified along with everything else
And they can happen so quickly.
at AI speed.
So a small problem that might have been easy to fix
Right.
if it had been caught early
Early on.
can quickly snowball into a major disaster.
Exactly.
And when you think about the ethical implications of AI,
Oh, yeah. This is big.
this becomes even more important.
Because AI is making decisions
Yeah.
that affect people's lives
In ways we never imagined before.
in ways we're just starting to understand.
And so we need to be able to have open and honest conversations
Making transparency.
about the potential risks and challenges.
Absolutely.
And a blame culture makes that almost impossible.
It shuts down those conversations.
So to wrap things up,
Yes.
what's the key takeaway?
The big message.
You want our listeners to remember from this deep dive. It's this. We need to shift
Yeah.
from a culture of blame to a culture of accountability.
Accountability.
And this starts with leadership.
Leaders have to lead the way.
They have to set the tone,
Yes.
create that safe space,
Yeah.
encourage open communication,
Yeah.
and focus on solutions, not blame.
And when we do that,
Then we can unlock
right.
the incredible potential of AI
Yes.
to do amazing things.
While also mitigating the risks.
Absolutely. We
Yeah.
can't have one without the other.
And for those of you listening
Yeah.
who want to learn more about these ideas,
There's so much good stuff out there.
we've included links in the description to some really insightful video presentations.
Yeah, definitely check those out.
And I think a great question for everyone to consider
Yeah, I love this question.
is how can you personally start to embody
Yeah,
this shift toward accountability
in your own work.
in your own work, in your own teams,
Yeah.
even in your personal life?
How can you be the change you want to see?
It's a really powerful question to think about.
It is. It's a challenge.
Yeah.
But it's an exciting one.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we can do this.
I think so too.